After years of silent treatment, I gave my estranged father a second chance. What followed was a painful journey through family betrayal, toxic relatives, and an unexpected twist that changed everything. The call came on a rainy Thursday afternoon, the kind of slow, gray day where you don't expect anything out of the ordinary. My phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in over a year. I stared at it for a few seconds before answering. "Hey, Aaron. It's me. Your dad." It took me a moment to respond. "My name is Aaron. I'm 27 years old, living in Silver Lake, trying to make a go of it as a musician. I work a side job at a music store to cover rent and spend most nights in my tiny apartment recording tracks." I hadn't heard from my dad in what felt like forever. We weren't exactly close. My childhood was full of quiet dinners, long silences, and broken promises that faded before they even began. "Hey. Hi," I said finally, the awkwardness hanging thick between us. "I know it's been a while," he said, his voice softer than I remembered. "Listen, I wouldn't be calling if it wasn't serious." I didn't say anything. Just waited. "My house, it's falling apart. Roof's leaking, the plumbing's shot, and now there's black mold in the basement. I got someone coming to inspect it, but I'm in over my head. Aaron, I need some help. Financially." I sat down on the arm of my couch. "How much are we talking?" "Maybe 15, 16 grand. I'll pay you back, of course. I just need it fast. The damage is worse than I thought." I chewed on the inside of my cheek. I've been saving for almost 4 years. Every side gig, every dollar I didn't spend on gear or food went into one account. My dream was to get out of this cramped apartment and finally buy a place of my own, a small studio condo, nothing fancy, but mine. He kept talking, rambling about inspectors and insurance delays. All I could think about was the way he'd disappeared after Mom left. Phone calls that went unanswered. Birthdays missed. His second wife, Naomi, popping up occasionally with her passive-aggressive smiles and fake warmth. Still, he was my dad. And for some stupid reason, some rusted-out part of me still wanted to believe we could fix what was broken. "I'll send you the money," I said. "But I'm giving you 22, just in case it ends up costing more." There was a pause. Then, "Aaron, thank you. You don't know how much this means." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe this was the beginning of something different. So I opened my banking app, transferred the money, and sat there afterwards staring at the confirmation screen like it meant something. He said it would go straight to the contractors. He said I'd see the repairs next time I visited. That was the last time he sounded honest. It was a Tuesday morning when the truth punched me in the gut. I was behind the counter at the music store, tuning a busted guitar someone had brought in, when my phone buzzed. A message from my dad. "David, hey kiddo, Naomi and I are heading to the Maldives. Finally taking that dream trip. Thanks again, you really helped us out." I read it 3 times before it registered. Maldives? I froze, my hands still on the tuning pegs. My stomach twisted. I opened Instagram, not his, but Naomi's. She posted constantly, tagging every location, every plate of food, every glass of wine. Sure enough, there it was. A boomerang of Naomi holding a flute of champagne in first class. Caption: "So grateful. Can't wait to wake up to the Indian Ocean every morning with my love. #Maldives, #couple goals, #blessed life." My heart dropped into my stomach. I kept scrolling. More posts. A video of their overwater villa, wide open to the sea. A picture of them in matching linen outfits, smiling like life couldn't get any better. And I was standing in the back room of a music store, hands still smelling like brass strings, with $22,000 missing from my savings account. I called him right away. Straight to voicemail. Tried again. Nothing. I sent a text. "Me, what the hell is this? You said the money was for home repairs." No response. I tried Naomi. Her story was still updating poolside cocktails, a private chef experience. I flipped back to a post she'd made a week before my dad called me, a quote overlaying a photo of the beach, manifesting what we deserve. Soon. Soon? They'd been planning this. Before the call. Before the tears about leaking pipes and black mold. Before I sent a single dollar. I left the store early that day. Told my manager I felt sick, which wasn't a lie. Back home, I sat on my floor and scrolled through every post, every tag location. They were on a 2-week luxury vacation, and I had paid for it without even realizing. And worse, they weren't even hiding it. They were flaunting it. Like I'd never see it. Like I didn't matter. I called them again. Straight to voicemail. I sent another message. "Me, I saw everything. You lied to me." Still nothing. The silence was louder than any response could have been. For the next hour, I spiraled. I pulled up screenshots, receipts, bank confirmations. I read old texts from him, the ones where he said things like, "You're my son, and I'll always be proud of you." It felt disgusting now. Every word stained with a lie I didn't see coming. He had conned me. Not just for the money, that was part of it, but for the trust. For the chance I gave him to finally be a real father again. Instead, he took my dream and bought a damn infinity pool with it. It took 4 days before he finally picked up the phone. I called again after dinner, expecting the same cold, automated voice. But this time, it rang twice before I heard his voice. "Aaron," he said, casual as ever. Like I hadn't left a dozen messages. Like everything was normal. "You lied to me," I said, my voice low, controlled. "You said the money was for home repairs. You and Naomi are sipping champagne over the ocean on my savings." There was a pause. Then he sighed. "Okay, listen. You've got this all wrong." "Really? Because I saw the posts? The flight. The villa. You've been gone for 10 days. I told you we were dealing with a lot. The house needed work, yes, but it was overwhelming. Naomi's been stressed. The doctor said she needed rest. The trip was for her health." I blinked, stunned at how fast he pivoted. "You told me there was black mold in the basement." "There is." "Then why the hell are you in the Maldives?" His tone hardened. "Do you think it's easy being married? Do you think life stops because the plumbing's bad? I'm sorry we didn't keep you in the loop, but it's not like we took your last dime. I gave you more than you asked for." I snapped. "I trusted you. I thought we were building something, like, finally. You called me after years of silence and asked for help, and I gave it. Because you're my dad." Another pause. Then he laughed. Not loud, but enough to freeze me. "Oh, Aaron, you still don't get it, do you?" I felt my stomach turn. "Get what?" "You're too emotional. You always have been. You think every gesture is some grand symbol of loyalty or love. It's just money. You act like you're the only one who's ever made a sacrifice." I stood in the middle of my living room, stunned. He just kept going. "Do you know what it's like to be responsible for someone else's happiness? Naomi has been carrying a lot. I needed to show up for her. That's what men do. They make sacrifices. And I guess mine didn't count," I said bitterly. "You're still young. You'll bounce back. This apartment fund, whatever it was, it's not like that was your only shot at life. You'll be fine." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Every word out of his mouth made me feel smaller. Like he wanted me to doubt myself. Like I was crazy for being upset. "You know what really pisses me off?" I said finally. "You didn't just lie. You made me feel guilty for hesitating. You knew what you were doing. You manipulated me into helping you." David scoffed. "You lent me money. Get over yourself. You're unbelievable." "No, I'm realistic. Maybe if you stopped playing the victim and started acting like a grown man, you'd understand what it means to take care of the people you love. That's what marriage is. That's what family is. You wouldn't know because you're too busy chasing a dream with a guitar and a half-empty bank account." Something shifted in me then. The old voice in my head, the one that always said, "He's still your dad," went quiet. "Thanks for the clarity," I said coldly. "You just helped me make a decision." What's that supposed to mean? But I was already pulling out my laptop, already logging into my backup email, the one I hadn't used in years. The one linked to his old Gmail, back when he'd used my computer to set up his tax forms. He never changed the password. I hung up. If he wanted to gaslight me, he'd picked the wrong son. It was time to find the truth. The password was still the same. It shouldn't have been, but it was Naomi 1997. I logged into my dad's old Gmail account that night, adrenaline buzzing in my fingertips. He used to check his email on my laptop when I was a teenager, and I guess he never thought I'd remember. Or maybe he didn't care. Either way, I was in. And what I found, it didn't just confirm my suspicions, it buried any doubt I had left. The first thing I noticed was a folder labeled Travel 2025. I opened it. Inside were email confirmations, plane tickets to Male dated 3 weeks before he called me asking for money. Not estimates or searches, but actual booked flights. First class, 2 seats, $11,800 total. Then the resort, an overwater villa with its own plunge pool and spa butler. Booked. Fully paid in advance. Same timeline. I sat there in silence, eyes scanning every line. I clicked open a forwarded email Naomi had sent him. "Can't wait. Told you he'd come through." It hit me like a slap. They weren't just hoping I'd help. They planned on it. And then, buried in the middle of a thread with the subject line, backup option, I found the worst of it, a message from my dad to Naomi. "If I guilt Aaron hard enough, he'll bite. I'll ask for 15 and get at least 20. He's always had a soft spot. Should cover the bulk of it. Should cover the bulk of it." That was me. A bulk payment. A soft spot. A walking loan application dressed as a son. I didn't even realize I was shaking until my hand knocked my empty glass off the coffee table. I opened Naomi's Instagram again. Went all the way back to the post from a week before David's phone call, the one with the quote about manifesting what we deserve. In the comments, someone had written, "Can't wait to see pics. So excited for you too." That comment was 2 days before he told me the house was unlivable. He was never in trouble. There was no black mold, no busted pipes, no crisis. It was all a scam. A pitch. And I bought it. For a long time, I just sat there, laptop open, screen glowing. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt hollow. Like someone had scooped me out and left the shell sitting on the couch. That money was everything I had. Years of ramen dinners, skipped vacations, late nights mixing tracks in a studio apartment that didn't even have AC. All of it so I could one day say, this is mine. And now it was gone, spent on beachfront massages and lobster dinners by the same man who once told me he wasn't the parenting type. At some point, I opened another tab, looked up small claims court procedures in Los Angeles County. You can sue someone for up to $25,000. I already had the evidence, the text from him asking for money, the receipts from the transfer, the vacation bookings dated before the request, and now the emails. I took screenshots of everything and backed them up to a hard drive. I wasn't just going to stew in this. Not this time. He lied to me. He used me. He planned it. And now, I was going to make him answer for it. I hadn't talked to Aunt Lydia in years. She was David's older sister, lived a couple hours north in Oxnard, and had mostly stayed out of the family drama. She'd always been a little distant, but not cruel. Not like the others. I found her number in an old email thread from when I sent Christmas cards one year. I figured she'd ignore my call, but she picked up on the third ring. Aaron, she said, surprised. Hey. Yeah, it's me. Sorry to call out of the blue. That's okay, she said, cautious but curious. Is everything all right? I let out a short breath. Not really. I need to ask you something. It's about my dad. There was a pause. What about him? So I told her. Everything. The loan. The fake emergency. The Maldives. The emails I found. By the time I finished, she was silent on the other end. Lydia. I'm here, she said quietly. I'm just not surprised. I froze. What do you mean? She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. Aaron, your father has always been like this. It's not just you. It's everyone. Me. Your grandparents. Cousins. Anyone who ever gave him the benefit of the doubt. I felt a tightness in my chest. You're serious? He did the same thing to me back in 2018, she said. Called crying about a failed investment. Said he was going to lose the house. I wired him $10,000. A week later, I saw him and Naomi on a ski trip in Aspen. I closed my eyes. Aspen. Of course. I confronted him, she continued. He gaslit me. Said the trip was already paid for, that I was overreacting. Then he cut me off completely when I stopped sending money. He never mentioned that to me, I said, though I wasn't even surprised anymore. He wouldn't, she said bitterly. Your father has a gift for twisting things. For turning people into villains the moment they stop being useful. It hit me then hard. This wasn't an isolated moment. It wasn't a slip-up. It was a pattern. A way of life for him. He didn't just lie to me. He built an entire persona out of manipulation, and I had been just another chapter in his long-running con. I'm taking him to small claims, I said, more to myself than to her. Good, she replied. He won't expect that. He still thinks you're the kid who wants his approval. I admitted. But not anymore. Then you're already ahead of where I was, she said, her voice softening. I'm proud of you, Aaron. Even if he never was. I thanked her and hung up. For the first time in days, the knot in my stomach loosened just a little. My dad had been playing this game for years. But not this time. This time, he picked the wrong person to lie to. And I was ready to fight back. Small claims court in Los Angeles isn't glamorous. Beige walls, hard chairs, fluorescent lights, the kind of place that smells like copier toner and stale coffee. But I wasn't there for aesthetics. I was there to get my money back. David walked in 10 minutes before the hearing. He looked rough. Hair thinning, shirt wrinkled. I sunken in like he hadn't slept right in days. But Naomi? She was dressed to impress, tight white dress, heels too high for a courthouse, and a face full of expensive makeup. She looked like she thought this was a red carpet event. I didn't say anything to them. Just sat with my lawyer, a friend of a friend who agreed to help for cheap. He leaned over and whispered, they don't look ready. They weren't. When the judge called our case, I stood up calmly. David sauntered over like this was some kind of joke, like he'd talk his way out of it. Mr. Delgado, the judge said, addressing me, you're requesting repayment of a loan totaling $22,000, correct? Yes, Your Honor, I said. It was transferred under the agreement it would be used for emergency home repairs. It was instead used to fund a vacation. David cut in, waving his hand. That's not true. The money was for home issues. We had repairs done. My lawyer slid the printed screenshots across the table. Flight bookings. Resort confirmations. The email from David to Naomi, the one where he said I'd cover the bulk of it. The judge read silently for a moment, then looked up. These bookings were made before your son transferred the money. Do you dispute this? David looked at Naomi, then back at the judge. It's complicated. The judge raised an eyebrow. Simplify it. Naomi jumped in then, like she couldn't help herself. Your Honor, we were under a lot of stress. The trip was therapeutic. My health. The judge held up a hand. This isn't about stress or health. This is about the intention behind the loan. David scoffed. He's just bitter. He's trying to humiliate me. That's what this is really about. He's always had issues with our family. He's selfish. I didn't take the bait. I stayed quiet. My lawyer did, too. We didn't need to argue. The truth was on paper. The judge turned to me. Mr. Delgado, did you ever receive any repayment or even communication that the money would be used for purposes other than home repairs? No, Your Honor. He nodded once. And you have documentation of the money being transferred under the pretense of a loan? Yes. Texts, bank records, everything. David tried one last time. You're really going to let him do this to his own father? Over a misunderstanding? The judge didn't flinch. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's misrepresentation. I rule in favor of the plaintiff. The defendant is to repay the full $22,000, plus applicable court costs. David's face went slack. Naomi's mouth actually dropped open like she couldn't believe this wasn't going her way. I stood slowly, gathered my papers, and nodded respectfully at the judge. As I walked out, I could hear Naomi hissing at David under her breath, something about how he should have just handled it quietly. For the first time in weeks, I felt steady. I had one. But as I stood outside the courthouse, watching the two of them argue by the parking meter, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. Justice wasn't a celebration. It was just a closing door. And I was ready to leave it shut. I thought winning in court would be the end of it. I was wrong. 2 days after the judgment, my phone started lighting up again. First, it was a string of texts from David. David, congrats. You officially killed our relationship. David, hope it was worth it. You humiliated your own father in public. David, Naomi's been crying nonstop. You destroyed this family. David, selfish. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. There was nothing left to say. Then the voicemails came, one after another. His voice bouncing between fake calm and full-blown rage. 1 minute he was willing to forgive me if I dropped the claim. The next he was screaming that I burn in hell for betraying blood. But it wasn't just him. Naomi jumped in too. She left a message so venomous I had to replay it twice just to be sure I heard it right. You don't deserve the name Delgado. You're a disgrace. I hope your little music dreams crash and burn just like your relationship with your father. That one, I saved. Just in case. I blocked them both after that. Phone, email, social, everything. No more letting them in. No more windows for them to crawl through with guilt and poison. The silence afterward was weird, quiet, but not peaceful. I felt this ache in my chest, not because I missed them, but because I kept replaying every moment that led me here, wondering how I'd let it get this far. How many red flags I'd ignored just because I wanted a dad. I sat on the floor of my apartment one night, scrolling through old pictures I hadn't looked at in years. There was one from when I was 13, me holding a second-hand guitar with a crooked grin, David's arm slung around my shoulder like we were tight. Back then, I thought that picture meant something. Now I knew better. Cutting ties with your own father, it doesn't feel like freedom. Not at first. It feels like grief. A strange kind. Like mourning someone who's still alive, but dead to the version of you that hoped for more. My therapist called it ambiguous loss. I called it finally being honest. The next few weeks were rough. My bank account was still dented, even with the court ruling. God knows how long it'd take him to actually pay it back. Enforcement could take time. Maybe forever. He wasn't the type to hand over a check quietly. But still, there was something new in my life. Space. No more waiting for a call that never came. No more wondering if this year he'd remember my birthday. No more stretching my own dreams thin just to keep a bond alive that only went one way. I started filling that space with things that mattered. Music. Friends. Quiet mornings with coffee and no stress. I didn't feel victorious. Not really. But I felt something better than that. I felt done. It took a while to adjust. At first, I didn't know what to do with all the extra headspace. No more check-ins. No more silent guilt lingering over every text I didn't send. Just time. And it was mine now. I leaned into it. I threw myself into my music again, not just to distract myself, but because for the first time in a long time, it felt like something I was doing for me. I started waking up early, taking walks through the neighborhood with my earbuds in and old demos playing, jotting down lyrics on my phone when something hit. I started recording again. Real sessions. New gear. I even rented a little studio space near Echo Park, nothing fancy, but it smelled like sawdust and potential, and that was enough. A couple of friends from the scene started helping me out. One of them had connections at a local indie label and said he'd pass along my EP when it was ready. It felt like the first real breath I'd taken in years. At the same time, I started apartment hunting again. The market hadn't gotten cheaper, and my down payment fund was still limping thanks to the hole. Dad blew it on a luxury vacation situation. But I wasn't letting that stop me. I'd rebuild, brick by brick if I had to. I also started saying no more often. That was new. My cousin hit me up around that time out of nowhere, friendly as ever, asking if I wanted to go in on a family gift for Grandma's birthday. He sent me a Venmo request for $250, then followed it up with, "Just cover it, and we'll figure it out later. You're doing pretty well, right?" I declined the request. Me, "Hey, I'm not doing that anymore. Hope she has a great birthday, though." It felt weird, but it also felt right. Like drawing a line I should have drawn years ago. I started setting boundaries with other relatives too, ones who used to reach out only when something was wrong or something needed fixing. I wasn't rude. I was just done playing the role of the reliable silent provider. The more space I created, the more people I found who respected it. A couple of old friends invited me to join their weekly jam sessions again. One of my old guitar teachers, a guy who used to give me lessons when I was 16, offered to mentor me through the process of pitching music for film work. And slowly, I began to rebuild something my father had tried to take from me. Trust. Not in him, not in family by default, but in people who showed up when it counted. I was still standing, still writing, still chasing what I loved. Only now, I was doing it without the weight of someone else's lies dragging me down. And for the first time in my life, that felt like winning. The message came late on a Sunday night. I was at the studio, working on a new track, when I checked my phone and saw it. A name I hadn't seen in weeks, sitting bold at the top of my inbox. David Delgado. The subject line was just one word. Sorry. For a second, I didn't move. Just stared at the screen. I hadn't heard from him since the court ruling. Not a payment. Not a call. Nothing. I tapped it open. Aaron, I know you probably won't read this. I know I messed up. I'm not proud of what I did. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I hope maybe one day you'll understand. Things got out of hand. I made some bad choices, and you didn't deserve any of it. You're a good son. You always were. I just couldn't admit that before. I hope you're okay. I hope the music's going well. I'm sorry, Dad. I stared at the message for a while. Not because it moved me, but because of how hollow it felt. No mention of the money. No plan to pay me back. No real ownership of what he'd done. Just a vague apology wrapped in guilt and nostalgia. And yet, a part of me, some old, rusted part, wanted to believe it. Wanted to see it as a step forward. But I didn't. I didn't reply. I didn't forward it. I didn't even save it. I just deleted it. Because that message wasn't for me. It was for him. So he could feel like he'd done the noble thing. Like he tried. But trying doesn't mean much when it comes $22,000 and a broken relationship too late. After that night, I didn't hear from him again. No more emails. No letters. No surprise voicemails begging for another chance. And honestly, that was fine. I didn't need a dramatic ending. I didn't need a final showdown or some big emotional apology with strings attached. I just needed it to be over. And in a quiet way, it was. The last time I drove past my dad's house, I didn't even slow down. I was heading to meet friends for a backyard show across town. The air smelled like grilled burgers and spring rain. My car windows were down. A new demo played through the speakers. And I felt good. Not healed. Not over it. But lighter. Like I'd taken off a jacket I didn't know I'd been wearing for years. What I'd learned through all of it, the lie, the betrayal, the court, was this. Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up when it counts. It's who respects your boundaries, your worth, your silence when you don't have anything left to give. And for the first time, I wasn't holding on to someone who refused to hold me back. I was free. And that was all the closure I needed.